There were 4 POC, points of contact in Licata, 3 to the west, Torre di Gaffe, Torre San Nicola and Pizzo Caduta, and only Poggio di Guardia to the east. Inside the fortifications, the border guards had the task of spotting the enemy and alerting the command and nearby posts. The POCs had been instituted by the King in November 1941 during his inspection of the 207th Coastal Division deployed in the 100 kilometers of coastline between Sciacca and Licata. Here we see the stone towers of Torre di Gaffe, code-named by Operation Husky Red Beach, strategic outpost for the conquest of western Sicily. 2 observation and defensive positions where the border guards of the 419th Battalion spotted the powerful American fleet on the night of July 10, 1943, and alerted divisions of the Sicilian, the artillery of Ballone Riosecco, and the 538th Battalion in the second line, which almost forced the Americans to retreat back to their ships. Among the most inaccessible observation points, Torre San Nicola could provide information to the command, which mobilized the Royal Air Force and the Luftwaffe at 1 a.m. on July 10th. The intervention of those forces caused the sinking of the Minesweeper Sentinel with the loss of about 60 men, half the crew, the collision of the destroyers Swanson and Roe, and damage to LSTs 382 and 345 and the corvette 621 and the submersible vessel 46. The Bay of Pollicia and the Bay of Mollarella were protected by their reefs, on which were 4 fortifications, including one on Caposella. From this position, Captain Candela, with a few men who were quartered in the Bilio house on Pizzo Caduta and in the Moulet houses, equipped with a few pieces of artillery, resisted the assault by the 15th Battalion and the Rangers. After the sinking 6 amphibians, the defenders at Pollicia were taken prisoner, at the cost of several Rangers killed and found the next morning on Caposella. The riflemen at Pizzo Caduta and the artillerymen at Casa Moulet also suffered the same fate. The first assault on Sicily began there with a pincer maneuver that left Licata out of the assault but besieged it from the west and east. Protected by covering fire from the destroyers Edison and Bristol firing on the hills of Montesole, Caduta and Monserrato, the 15th Regiment also poured its men into the galleys of Marianello. Meanwhile, another contingent assaulted the Playa Beach, countered by shell fire from the armored train positioned on Licata's harbor, but protected by fire from the destroyer Buck and the cruiser Brooklyn. The last coastal observation point stood on the small promontory of Poggio di Guardia, watching over the yellow beach of Playa Montegrande and the blue one at Punta Due Rocche Falconara. The area was stormed by the 30th Tactical Group, acting in collaboration with the 34th Livorno Regiment, operating near Butera Station and Poggio Lungo. Here, the soldiers of the few defending fortifications understood the unequal struggle of a single battalion, the 319th, against an entire U.S. division. And here the axis of counteroffensive operated in defense, and that caused damage to the fleet from the first light of dawn on July the 10th, including the sinking of Falconara of the destroyer Maddox with more than 250 men. The Axis counteroffensive continued the next day, when the ship Robert Rowan and LST-158, loaded with ammunition, sank after exploding. Falconara Castle became home of the Office of Strategic Services of the U.S., which was the leading Allied body in the negotiations between Guzzoni's Sicilian Sixth Army Command and Patton's U.S. Command, commanded by Max Corvo. Then Sant'Oliva area became the first area of inland penetration. The 139th Regiment of the 207th Coastal Division was headquartered here. It established its headquarters in the Urso Irene blockhouse in Calandrino, while on the top of the hill along Highway 123 heavy artillery was stationed. Other defensive fortifications were in the Piana and Concaginisi areas, San Francesco di Paola, and also in Safarella. Scattered here and there were many small barracks in obvious disrepair. Telling us the extent of the impact of the war on the Licata territory are the lists of prisoners, 103 captured officers and over 3,000 civilians, and of the dead, 183 Americans, 123 Italians, 45 Germans, and 70 civilians that unequivocally document the violence of the clash in Licata in the ASCII-coded JAWS area. This disproves the cliché that the landing process was painless.